Amazing work what you guys do. I absolutely love it.
Look at your dog. Oh,
Oh, yes, this is Charlie the Wiener Dog. He joins me for every single webinar.
hi, Charlie the Wiener Dog. Aw.
He won't leave me. Like all quarantine, every webinar we did, he is just right there.
How old is Charlie the Wiener Dog?
He is 13 and a half.
Wow,
He's
awesome.
a good guy. Yeah, it's kind of
I
funny.
love it.
Yeah. I forget that his little head pops up
You know,
sometimes.
all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, there's a dog too. This webinar just got so much next level.
Yeah, I mean, who
I
doesn't
love
want
it.
a Wiener Dog on a webinar, right? I
I
mean,
know, I love it. I mean, the best I can do is my old school troll.
aw. Oh, that's great. Well, you know what? I'm just really excited. We've got some people here. We've got Bill. Bill is just a sweet, sweet man. He's living in Slave Lake. We got Corey, who is quite the advocate for mental health. We have Dale, who we know from Okotoks, and Laura. And we have other people that are going to join us. And so I just want to say welcome to all of our guests that are here right now. Just thank you for coming. And for those of you watching on Facebook Live, thank you so much for being here. Interesting news last night, and very interesting scrolling through social media today, seeing what people think of this news, seeing what everyone is doing in response. We have Jason all the way here from Ontario. I'm not sure what the restrictions are there, but Jason, I just want to introduce you because I had the most amazing conversation with you. I got off the phone with you thinking, okay, the world is in good hands because is in it. And so I just want to introduce you to Jason right here. This is Jason Gottwald. He is coming to us all the way from Windsor, Ontario today. He is the Director of Sales and Partnerships at Headversity. I don't know if everyone knows about Headversity. They have an amazing resilience app, phenomenal company. And he is the former Director of International Partnerships and Strategic Alliances with Virgin Pulse. He's a speaker, a corporate trainer, private investor in several creative firms, self-described as a creative connector. I would definitely say I've picked up on that, Jason, with you. Servant leader for sure. You don't have to listen to him for long to realize that he is here to serve and loves people. Love this. You're a dad of 3 daughters, Curious George, and built a career off of failing forward. Anyone else? That sounds great. Can I add that to my bio? And I really did enjoy all of what I learned about how to creatively collaborate. So Jason, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, you did a fantastic job and better than I would ever do. So I'm deeply appreciative and grateful for that introduction, Connie. And thank you for everyone for tuning in. We're excited to, I'm really excited to be here and to be able to share my experience of collaboration, primarily in the business world and what I've learned, poor collaborations and failing forward from those and taking those key learnings and applying them to some really successful collaborations and partnerships and being able to importantly make a meaningful impact in the areas where we intended to make a meaningful impact. So, you know, based on my recent roles and posts with Virgin Pulse and now with Headversity and some of the other ventures I'm involved in, you know, collaboration is really everything. It's bringing together the best from a group of people and working toward a common goal, being open and honest and vulnerable in that experience, and really understanding what the key objectives are for all stakeholders. And I hope what I can share has some impact and is applicable and tangible and practical and can be applied and bring some value to everyone here today. And I'm mostly excited to learn from Beth and Abe and yourself, Connie. I'm that curious George in me doesn't ever want to stop learning. So thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
So good. That's so good. And thanks so much, Jason. And you know, we're really excited to learn more about what Headversity is doing and of course, what you're doing and what sort of impact that looks like. And of course, our other panel guest today is Beth with the United Way. Beth is the Chief Operating Officer with the United Way of Calgary and area, and has a long earned reputation as a collaborative leader. And, you know, the United Way of Calgary and area is such a great collaborator on so many different fronts. You know, they hold such a critical sort of seat in community with respect to influence and impact. And yet what I love about Beth, and of course the entire team at the United Way, is how they work so diligently to collaborate. And collaboration is never perfect, you know. It's interesting because there's no sort of perfect form of collaboration, but what you really sense in the United Way of Calgary and area, and absolutely with Beth, is just a desire to keep at the table of collaboration until we can create outcomes that are going to better serve and support people. And I appreciate that. You know, you can see Beth's bio on the screen. Obviously, she has just an incredible track record of over 20 years of innovative leadership. She has led high-functioning creative teams in municipal government and nonprofit sectors, not only here in Alberta, but also in Ontario. As a member of the LGBTQS plus community, she works to build places and spaces. And I just love that because, you know, it's not just a place, but it's also a space where we have equity and diversity, inclusivity, where everyone feels safe and valued and belonging. And so welcome, Beth. We're so grateful for you being here today.
Well, thank you, Abe and Connie. And like Jason, I'm looking forward to learning from all of you. And Jason, it's a real pleasure to meet you. Just before we started, Jason and I were saying that we're both actually from the same place. Or Jason is living in my hometown right now, which is Windsor, Ontario. And I'm happy to be here in Calgary and Mohkinstsis on the traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy. And also home to the Stoney Nakoda and Tsuut'ina First Nations and the Métis people who've made their home here in Region 3. And it's important for me to say that as a settler, because one of the things that I'm really committed to is understanding what collaboration looks like with Indigenous people in our country, and that to me is a real call to reconciliation. And I think that all of our work in collaboration is really towards leaning into the truth and reconciling our differences, and really focusing on identifying a common problem that we all agree needs to be solved, and really leaning into that work together through that lens of true inclusivity. So glad to be here. Thank you.
We're so glad you're here, both of you. This is going to be, like I said, a very timely conversation about what is collaboration. I think a lot of people have an idea of what collaboration is. There might be some fear, like if I collaborate as a business, am I going to lose my identity? Am I going to get run over? Am I going to, is somebody going to rip me off? Like there's all kinds of fears and also unknowns with collaboration. And you both have had extensive collaboration experience in the nonprofit and business world. And so what I would love to do is start our conversation with figuring out, what is collaboration? What are some things that you have done or noticed in your world? And Beth, I would love for you to share it with this first.
Yeah, I think, you know, Jason said it's true. All collaborations are relationships, really, that you're determining a way to formalize and create a construct that, you know, everyone can feel that they're contributing towards. For me, a really important reality entering into a collaboration is you need to suspend your ego, and you need to let go of ego. You need to let go of your own perceptions. You need to let go and lean into a new reality that you're co-creating and co-designing with each other. You know, I come from a creative practice. So my undergraduate degree is actually in dramatic arts and education from the University of Windsor. And I come from a creative practice. So I come from the arts and culture world. And the very first thing that I remember learning when I first started in a theater practice was that idea that you need to let go and trust the ensemble. And trust that the ensemble will actually co-create and co-design a vision that will be compelling enough because you believe enough in each other that others will be able to believe what you are presenting. And it truly is, you know, contained within that passion for that belief and trust in one another, that all collaboration that I've ever participated in has to come from, and that's where it needs to start.
Powerful start. Powerful. And letting go of our ego, that's not easy, especially when you've started a business. It's your baby. You feel the sense of ownership over it, or even a nonprofit. Even I used to own a dance movement company, and just even owning that part of the arts, like, this is such an important start to our conversation. I absolutely love that thought, for sure. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, I would echo that. I love that thought, and I love that you mentioned it's a practice without the ego being present, and being aware of maybe our egotistical properties, and really being mindful of those. I mentioned earlier vulnerability, and I think that aligns with being okay with not being the best at everything, being okay with bringing in partners, and understanding that they're bringing skills and perspective that can lift all boats. So yeah, I guess from a definition of collaboration, the way I look at it, and really this is in the business context, mostly from my experience, is working with others, whether internal stakeholders with different seats, or with external stakeholders and other partners, to create something new that aligns with a common goal, or as Beth put, a problem we're looking to mutually solve, and really approaching that with full honesty on the skills that we or I bring to the table, and really taking clearly identifying the objectives that I'm looking to accomplish, or we are looking to accomplish first, and understanding what those are, and being able to articulate those to the other parties, and having that that practice done around, call it the circle, so that we're laying it all on the table openly and honestly, and we'll see if there's synergies, alignment, or redundancies, and being okay with the idea feels right, but it seems that our objectives don't fully align, so maybe this is not the collaboration we should put our time and energy into. Because we're creating something new, because we're taking an innovative approach to solving an existing problem that we've identified, it requires a lot of energy and leaning in, as Beth said. So I think it's I've learned it's very important to keep riding that high of excitement and optimism. However, taking a critical look at what is our key objectives, what is the key objectives of the other individuals, what is the value that we bring to the table, and what is the value that we bring to their objectives, what is the value that they bring to ours, and does this make sense? Is there full alignment, and is there skin in the game for all of us? So we have that vested interest in working mutually together and for each other. What's that, Abe? So I think just the groundwork up front, the open and honesty, and releasing the ego is vital to setting the tone, and being and starting that conversation with candor is vital to setting the tone for effective collaboration throughout, and it allows for building a structure that's going to be conducive of bringing everyone's skills to life, and again, working for each other toward that common goal.
I just love that. And, Beth, you use the language of co-creation. And I think that's such a critical part of collaboration, yet it sort of flies in the face of sort of our modern, hero culture, where, Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple or whatever, right? And as if it's like one person who did all of that. How do we move past, this need, I need to create, I need to be seen, I need to be heard, to, we did this, and we did this for the collective good? And love to hear from both of you on that.
I'll jump in on this one. This is why I started with ego. The idea that you're going to co-create or co-design with someone means, as Jason said, you bring your best self. That means you bring all of your tools, all of your skills, all of your knowledge, and you're focusing on the thing that's in the middle of the circle that you're trying to solve. And if you can't do that, you probably aren't going to be able to work in a collaboration. It's just the reality. And that's okay, because not everything needs to be a collaboration, and not everything should be a collaboration. And, you know, the next thing is, I would say, yeah, there are some individual geniuses out there, no question about it, who, you know, who have these things birthed from their minds, and are able to, you know, attract people to those ideas. But again, Abe, to your point, nobody does this work alone. So even if I were to sit here and have a fantastic idea, I would need to call you or Connie or Jason or 100 other people in order to kick it around, and to make sure that I'm asking the best questions. Because for me, here's the thing about collaboration too. I don't know that I know what the best questions are. And you're only going to get to the best solution if you're really asking the best questions. And I ask myself, how willing am I to learn from the questions that others are asking me? And how willing am I to learn by asking questions of others, so that I can get to, you know, get to a better solution? Because that's really what we're trying to do. So for me, you know, being candid, and being honest and being authentic, part of that is saying I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to challenge my own concepts, my own gestalt, my own zeitgeist, my own understanding of the world, by listening or asking, you know, increasingly difficult and increasingly challenging questions of myself and of others. And I think that that's really a key tool and a key component. You know, and I ask myself every day, am I asking good enough questions?
I love that. I love that, asking the right questions, being critical of self, asking ourselves internally questions. I guess Abe, how I might comment on that is, as I think it starts with mindset. So that idea of being the creator. Then this is me, but I generally approach things with the understanding that any idea that might feel original to me, it was inspired or triggered by something else that already exists. So my ideas, as much as they may be original to maybe that collaboration, they're really a lived experience, opportunity, and that I should feel grateful for, that I can bring forward. I really don't look at things as potentially my ideas, because all our ideas come from our experiences. And I think there's a wonderful proverb: if you want to go if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So if you look at the greatest successes that you might identify as successes, most likely it's been a collaboration or a group of people coming together and working effectively together. So I think the mindset going into a collaboration is something that needs to be established at an individual level. And that then comes with helping release the ego, because we all battle with our ego. I know I do. But taking a moment before we go into meetings, or taking a moment before we start our workday, to really think critically about working with others effectively, and that there's an opportunity to learn, and that curiosity and that learning mindset, I think, sets a nice tone for mitigating the risk of conflicting ideas and who came up with it in conversations such as that.
I really love these thoughts. These are such excellent points to be made. If I'm a business and, you know, I'm floundering, and, you know, restrictions are being thrown at me, and I'm feeling like I'm sinking, and I hear about this collaborative nature, and I'm listening to you lay down the ego and focus on a mission and do it together, what kind of people, or what am I looking for in creating those collaborations? Because I don't know if collaborating with everyone is a great idea, because then we're not doing anything well. But how do you know who is a good fit, or who you should collaborate with, or what that can look like when you decide you want to collaborate?
Yeah, I might jump in. It's a wonderful question there, Connie. I think, and Beth mentioned it earlier as well, it doesn't always make sense to collaborate. So if we clearly identify at an individual level or an organizational level, the issue or the problem we're looking to solve, and we understand the objective and what we need to do to accomplish that, or what we feel we need to do. And do we have the skill set to do that ourselves? Maybe collaboration doesn't make sense. Maybe it's more of we have the internal resources to really take a good go at this, and we constantly evaluate to see if we're able to hit the milestones in which we set. And there might be collaboration out of necessity within the organization. So I think looking internal first to see what might, that internal collaboration that might exist, which will be a process in which you can set in motion a lot faster than looking at external parties, might be a best first practice in that sense.
Yeah, I would add to that to say that, you know, Jason's right. You have to do the internal work first, right? To say, what is the problem I'm really trying to solve? Do I have the skills to do it? If I don't, who might? And really being quite active to go and find people, you know, listen to webinars, you know, read, you know, try to meet people, you know, virtually in this environment. In fact, the weird thing about this time is that in many respects, I've had much more in-depth conversations with people over the past 6 months than I've probably had in the past 6 years in many ways, because this is very focused conversation. There are no distractions. There's nobody running into my office handing me something to sign, or there's no external distraction. You know, there's me and you know, my goofy little troll, and you know, and that's, you know, really it. So, but I think it really is. You know, you need to do your own homework first so that you can actually be a good collaborator. And the second thing I would say is that what kind of infrastructure do you have in place in your organization to support your collaboration? So that might be, do you have good people on a legal team or know of a legal team who is able to think this way and who can act this way and who can construct agreements that are liberating agreements, you know, as opposed to agreements that are really highly overly focused on punitive risk assessment, et cetera, you know, that really is counterintuitive and antithetical to what you're trying to do when it comes to collaboration. So I think that, you know, if you don't have the skills, then skill up, you know, phone a friend, send me an email. I mean, you know, like, I think it's about, you know, kicking that around to do a real skills assessment, a gap analysis in terms of that skill, and then looking within your own organizational infrastructure or your network to say, you know, here's how we might need to go about this, or I might need to go about that, and make your own map. The other thing I would say is that when I'm, you know, meeting with people, I'm listening with a high degree of curiosity. I'm really listening for connections. I'm listening for, you know, stars in the constellation that have not yet been connected to form anything that can be identified. And the one thing I know in my very limited knowledge of science is that there are many more stars and planets in the universe than I can see with my naked eye, which tells me that there is a lot of opportunity space. And I apply that same kind of thinking when I'm listening to people, to say, well, I'm listening for something. I'm listening for some kind of an aha moment around some kind of shared purpose, some kind of shared problem, some kind of, you know, shared experience that we can immediately start to connect in and you know, really learn about each other in a number of different ways. So, you know, I think that those are some of the things that I would suggest. And again, it's a design, it's practice, it's a design.
Just love that. You know, thanks so much, both Beth and Jason. You know, like you were saying, Beth, that this time has been a time of conversations, right? I mean, I guess, you know, some could sit and watch Netflix a lot, or you could be, you know, using some of this extra time that you may have to build deeper relationships. So we had a guy on our webinar months ago named Graham Sherman, and you know, he told this fabulous story of collaboration where, you know, so he's the founder, the owner of, I think it's called Tool Shed. Is that right, Connie? Brewing company. Yeah, and so they make beer, and of course, you know, when the lockdown first happened in March, I mean, it was devastating because, you know, their main customer is local bars and pubs and that kind of a thing. And so he had all this space, and of course, all of these food preparation companies had a need for space. And so they were able to connect, right? And that was, you know, according to Graham, one of the critical things that kept his business going. And I think sometimes If you're in business, you can think, well, collaboration, that's really for the nonprofit people, but I'm in business, so I've got to figure out my business model and somehow make it work. And yet, just like you said, Beth, those stars are all out there, and you just have no idea how maybe your capacity can meet someone's need, or vice versa. So do either of you have any, I'm sure you have tons and tons, and so I don't want to put you on the spot or certainly ask you to, share confidential information, but any examples of collaboration to that person who might be listening today, and maybe they're at the end of their rope and they don't know what to do, but maybe some example that you share could just give them a little bit of hope,
If I might, I mean, Connie, I just think of the relationship with the adaptive YYC program that exists, and I believe that started with you taking a leap of faith and reaching out to our executives, introducing yourself, and I think being very candid with what you think might be an opportunity and having that conversation. And then here we are with a program that is I think one of the most exciting collaborations that Headversity has been a part of, and with the support of the United Way and Wellness Innovates to put this program together for the YYC community. I think that's a very strong case example of collective understanding of core competencies coming together. Staying within our core business model, yet understanding that there's an opportunity to make an impact if we come together. So with really the high touch, with the, I mean, everyone knows what United Way does, but the ability, really what I understand and what I've learned is United Way YYC is extremely innovative, social innovation in your approach compared to other United Way constituencies, and your overall support for the community. And Wellness Innovates with your ability to power local group based training, really that high touch coaching experience, and Headversity where we're focused on the high tech experience. And we've come together in a way to put together which looks to us to be extremely meaningful and impactful YYC adaptive program, which I think also the beauty of all this is what we're training on around training resilience and belonging and emotional intelligence and support is going to be core and essential for the skills, the interpersonal skills required to effectively collaborate, which I think is kind of full circle and really exciting. So I wanted to take an opportunity to identify, our gratitude of working with Wellness Innovate and United Way YYC in putting together this program. And I think it is, if you wanted to elaborate further, a case example of really strong collaboration.
I couldn't agree more with that, Jason. In fact, it's interesting that this whole collaboration came about through a community connector named Tony McGrath, who was the CEO of Theatre Grand. And he introduced me to Dr. Ryan Todd. He said, Connie, I think that you'd really like this guy. So I get on a call with Dr. Ryan and I think I really like this guy. And then when this all hit and our business is thinking about how do we help businesses be resilient when the people who really need our services right now, they have no budget for this. They're drowning. And it was a risk. It felt like a risk to reach out to Dr. Ryan initially and say, hey, like, what would you think? But it started with this idea of, if I could imagine what I would love, what we would love to build, and what would really impact the impact of resilience, an app, oh my goodness, Headversity, wouldn't that be amazing? What could we do together? And I think that sometimes it just takes, can you imagine? Just taking a moment, can you imagine? And then remembering that if you're a community connector, you just never know what you're doing. I look at Greg McGilvery. He's in our chat right now. I look at Karen Judge. You look at people like this who are constantly connecting people to other people. And you just don't know what you're doing. You might wonder some days, does this matter? Me introducing people to who? But it really does impact. And you might never get to see the impact it makes, but connecting and collaborating and getting out there and networking, you just don't know where it will lead.
I love that. I might give another example of structuring a partnership and really in true essence of a collaboration, so that there's continuous and sustainable invested or vested action and engagement, where the essence or the outcome or the goals were aligned with key objectives, but secondary priorities for each of our businesses. So with keeping confidentiality as much as possible, essentially it was private world, similarly partnering with the nonprofit world. And for the organization I was representing, this was about reach into a market in which we struggled to reach with a product we felt can benefit that market. And for the nonprofit, it was about building brand awareness and about adding additional value to their members. So more of that stickiness. For us, it was business development. For the nonprofit, it was about that stickiness. And I'd put together a similar type of partnership in the past, and it just went nowhere. It all felt good. There was no, the contract was more of a goodwill or good faith contract. And I wonder if anyone else has experienced this. Nothing really ended up happening other than a lot of good conversation, some friendships, but in terms of outcomes, zero. So it was unfortunate. So I learned from that experience, and with the structure of the deal, there was, and if you can imagine, this is a very bold CEO of a nonprofit who was willing to, for lack of better terms, put their money where her mouth was, I guess is maybe the best way of putting it, and guaranteed a revenue outcome for us, but we also guaranteed deliverables for them. And it was a very reasonable target. And if we hit that target, there would be no cost to the nonprofit. And of course, we would benefit, of course, by over-exceeding or over-subscribing our revenue target. So because there's a structure in place where there was skin in the game from the nonprofit party, and there were deliverables outlined in the contract from our part, we tripled the revenue opportunity. The stickiness, and we ever measure the engagement on their side, was extremely high. And the partner, we both contributed a significant amount of resources to make it work, because we were both tied to deliverables, opposed to the previous similar partnership that was kind of a goodwill. This should work. There's a commission contract in place for anything that comes in, and this all feels right. I think the structure and the contracting can really motivate the action that's discussed at the beginning of that relationship.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you that being focused on deliverables and being focused on results as part of your design process, determining that out, figuring that out, not making it overly complicated, making it reasonable, making it achievable, so that people can see success as you're going through your collaboration and starting to launch your work, I think is truly really, really important. The project that we're working on right now, the Adaptive YYC project, is all about that, right? Each of us are contributing different things. We know what those things are. We've been very explicit about what each of us are doing, what each of us are contributing, what our specific skin in the game is. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end in terms of how we're focusing our work. I feel it's been a very, aggressive and targeted work plan, and we have a very targeted and aggressive execution plan. And all of that stuff is super important. Collaboration is hard work. It's likely going to be the most difficult kind of work you're going to do. Because there are so many complexities, and they're not your own complexities. They're the complexities of your collective. So, having these very clear structures, Jason, as you're saying, in place to help you to identify what your deliverables are, what are your outcomes going to be, and really being quite specific about, how you're going to get there is super important. I'll be the first person to tell you that is not my particular skill set. I'm really quite much better at the ideation and stitching together the constellation. I learned a long time ago to ensure that I am working with people who have skills that I don't have, and I'm very clear about that too. Being honest about what I'm good at and what others are good at, I think is a hugely important part of being a successful collaborator. Another project that we're working on, we're in year 3 of our collaboration right now, is with J5 Design. Ourselves, United Way of Calgary and area, and J5 Design came together 3 years ago to start our Social Impact Lab, which is about social innovation. And social writ large, not just the social services sector, social in terms of humans being social beings. And what is it that we need to do in order to be successful? And again, that collaboration started out with a lot of passion and empathy for the work, for the community. And we struggled in the early days to really find our footing because we didn't really know what we were trying to achieve. This was net new for everybody. We're in year 3, and now I can tell you we are quite specific. In fact, we had our hour-and-a-half meeting today that we have on the regular about what's in the project list, what is everything at different states of readiness, et cetera, and how are we going to now shift our structural agreements in order to become increasingly refined and clear. So being very clear in terms of roles, responsibilities, et cetera. And I'll say the last thing is to evaluate your partnership itself, right? So not just focusing on the tasks, the what it is that you're trying to do together, the problem that you're trying to solve. Focusing on, who you are in the partnership and being clear about that and making that a part of your evaluation process. Am I a good partner based on what we agreed on? And I've learned that lesson from Jocelyn Daw from the Partnership Brokers, with whom we also work here at United Way in Calgary, to be really clear about what your partnership is actually about as a partnership.
That's great. So this question is going to be a little interesting, and it's not part of the script, so you don't have to answer it. And Connie or I, we could make something up if we have to. But have you had any collaboration sort of fails or partnership fails that? And again, no confidentiality disclosures required, but just what did you learn from that? Because I know like you have all said, it's kind of easier just to do it by yourself because it's me, myself, and I. But if you want to do something great, then you've got to bring other people, but there's all these risks. And so sometimes I think people appear to be quite insular, not because they are, but just maybe they've been burned in the past. And so what have you learned, either of you? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I can go first. I've had quite a few fails. I'll be the first to admit that. And I don't know, Abe, if it was yourself or Connie, but early on, or maybe it was Beth, there's no perfect way to collaborate. And each problem's unique, and the partners involved and the stakeholders involved or the collaborators involved are unique. And therefore, it's always an evolving practice. So, very quickly, I referring to the last example I shared, I think if it becomes a partnership, there's a contract involved, there needs to be structure, there needs to be commitment from each party, and that needs to be put in reasonable, agreed upon, and then put in writing and signed on. I believe that's just a good structure and it's fair. So when that was not in place, generally, then you're going off, again, good faith and good wishes, but when other priorities come forward that have contracts behind them, the other stuff falls away. I think maybe internally, I might share an internal collaboration. So I'm referring to a project we're looking to do to really complete the customer experience, the customer journey from initial reach out to that ongoing relationship that we'd have. And with that, there's a lot of parties involved internally. You have your sales side, you have marketing, you have product, you have the customer success team, etc. So this is a couple companies ago that I was working with. And we really knew we had to come together, and our different stakeholders, assign roles, and come up with a plan, an execution plan to create that customer journey so it's seamless, it's consistent across the entire customer. So where did we fail in that? Well, we had the right people in place, we had the right skills, we had the tools and resources available to us, and I think we had a pretty solid plan. What we didn't assign was someone to oversee the plan. So we all there's no accountability partner for that plan, and then we still had the competing priorities of the business. So in that particular instance, it really did require an internal body to be that overarching accountability partner, and bring us together effectively and be a facilitator of that internal collaboration. And because that was missing, a lot of things got dropped, and eventually we figured it out, but it took probably 2 times as long as it needed to. And a lot of opportunity costs come with that, a lot of internal resources, and then some interpersonal relationships were potentially put at risk because of the strain it was put on everyone to move it through the process. So I think that was it wasn't an ultimate fail, but it was a key learning that I will never forget moving forward.
Yeah, most things are going to fail, and I right. I mean, it's true. Most things are going to fail. Most conversations you're going to have, to John's point in the chat, are super interesting. They may provide value, as Connie you said earlier, that you'll never know about, and that value may not be to you, which is great. Have many conversations, have many different types of personal experiences. Continue to seek. I fail all the time. And I'm really fortunate that I work for someone, Karen Young, our CEO, who supports that failure, quite frankly. And I actually think one of the reasons she brought me to the organization is because I can fail really well. And what I mean by that is that, you know, I'm constantly trying, constantly seeking, constantly trying to evolve, constantly trying to understand, constantly trying to build, construct, deconstruct. And so I feel in big ways and small ways a lot. And I just think it's really important. One of the ways that I fail most frequently is when I get so excited about things that I skip about 14 letters in the alphabet and go straight to the end, right? A, B, LMNO, Z. That's me a lot of the time. And that's not good. But I'm hardwired for it, and sometimes I get too excited, and you know, I just kind of default to that, which is why, you know, it's really important to know your strengths, know your weaknesses, and view that from a lens of asset, right? And to bring the assets together. And you know, Jason's right. Having leadership and someone who can actually pull together the pieces is really important to kind of keep you on track. But you know, I'm always interested in chasing that, as I said in the chat, I'm always interested in chasing the note that's heard but isn't played. And that to me is the beauty of a collaboration. And I don't think you get to that understanding, you don't get to that harmonic unless you practice, and you practice enough that you fail most of the time in your rehearsals. You know, I go back to my theater days, and I had this really old school, like I'm talking like old school theater director, John Hamilton McCarroll, and he used to say, if you don't screw up in your dress rehearsal, you're not playing this right. And there is that need to at least have some kind of an experience with failure, and not to be afraid of it, because it's only going to make you better. Richard Wagamese says, even difficulties are gifts, and I think about that when I think about collaboration. The difficulties that you're having in your collaboration are the gifts that you're learning in terms of what you can bring into the next collaboration, and the next collaboration might be 10 minutes after this call, and I hope so.
Yes. Beth, I'm laughing because I so relate to you. I am that alphabet as well. What? There's a middle? Like, I had no idea. And I think that you bring up a really good point, both of you, that the more aware we are of the gifts that we have, the skills that we have. I think of every collaboration that I've been in that has failed as me as the initiator is because I didn't know myself and I didn't know what I should be looking for. I was looking for people who were just like me, or people who I just saw in front of me at the moment, instead of looking for people who could complement the eccentric, the visionary person that I am, and realize, oh, I need someone to do PowerPoint. Oh my Lord, I need somebody to run the computer. I need somebody. And you know, one of the things I have found, even in this collaboration, is just the joy of seeing people in their lane and when they're playing in their lane. I love watching Lynn run our meetings. She is a machine. Like, talk about somebody who knows what she's doing. And I love watching Jordan just be so direct and frank and just, this is what we need to do. And I love watching Abe just with his strategy and how he comes up with, just filling out documents that I'm like, what documents? We had documents? Like, I just get a lot of joy of watching team members play at their strengths. And what would we be missing out on if we didn't do that? If it was just me in my house, or Abe in his office, and all of us doing our own things. It really is quite joyful and fun to figure out who is this person and how do they work.
I think you're right. I think that, for me, I'm always trying to get to maybe, right? Because I feel if I can get you to we can get to maybe on something, the odds that we can get to yes have just improved exponentially, right? And if we can get to maybe, understanding, as you say, Connie, who each of us are and the skills that we bring, we've come to an idea in terms of what we think the problem is to solve, and that we really commit to then testing the viability and the feasibility and the desirability of what it is that you're creating. And we build a team that truly is inclusive of all of our diversity. And says, you know what, we're not going to solve a complex problem with simple solutions. Like that just doesn't work. Complex problems require complex solutions. They don't need to be complicated. That's really different. So I do feel that is in fact the fun. That's the art. That's the joy. That's also often the misery, of, and the frustration of it. But again, even difficulties are gifts. And what is the gift that's in the moment and in the collaboration, in the learning, in the failure, and in the success. And that's why I prefer to collaborate. It ain't no fun to do it by myself.
No, and I mean, I think you both are so brilliant, and we're so grateful, because I really feel like the complex problems that we're facing today, without collaboration, we just don't have a hope. And the challenges of collaboration, the ego destruction, all of it is 100% worth it, so that in the end we can end up with better outcomes, right? And so really just want to thank you on behalf of Wellness Innovate for joining us today, Beth and Jason. But before we close this off today, I would just love to give you both an opportunity to share a final thought, just to leave the audience with. Why don't we start with you, Beth?
Well, thank you. And thank you, Wellness Innovate and Jason. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you to everyone who's watching today. I would say, Abe, I can echo your comment. Complex problems require complex solutions. We need to do this together to move forward. I frankly think there's a lot of lessons that we can be learning and should be learning from oral Indigenous systems thinking and practice in that space. There are two systems available to us in the world, a Western written system and an oral Indigenous system. Both systems are necessary, not to be confused or conflated with one another, but both systems have necessary ways in which we can be working and learning how to be better in our world.
Love that, Beth. And yes, thank you, Wellness Innovate. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, United Way. And thank you for everyone for joining. Approach things honestly, to yourself first. Be very clear in what you're trying to do and your objectives, and be open and honest with those around you. and ask for that same honesty in return, and make sure you're getting that honesty in return as the setting the tone for any collaboration that you might approach. And as Beth said earlier, you really do need to work toward releasing the ego, being vulnerable, understanding your strengths and bringing those to the table and leaning in, and developing really that mindset of curiosity. I think is where it really all begins and sparks. And then I absolutely agree, making sure that you're getting individuals with unique perspectives on things, and making sure we're elevating everyone's voice so that we have more opportunity to learn, ask better questions, as you said, and get to the right solution and the right path forward.
So good. Thank you so much, Beth, and thank you, Jason. I was just thinking, I'm not much of a tool person. I need a written authorization from my wife to access my own toolbox. And, I can't even mount a TV without like a team of 4 or 5 people, you know what I mean, right? And so it's just funny when we talk about ego, because really some of these really simple things we need lots of help to do, right? And yet we have these bigger challenges and we're like, I'm going to do this. And it's just so silly, because I can't even put that TV up on my wall in my own house without having like a group of people helping me. And so I just appreciate that you both come with such humility today. You have had such an impact, both of you. I know, Beth, long 20-year history, and the United Way doing so much good. And Jason, I just got to meet you here today, but listening to you, hearing your heart and your vast intelligence, and Headversity is doing such good work. So we want to thank you both, and I'll just turn it over to Connie to give us a final wrap up today.
Just thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Jason and Beth. You are just spectacular people. And I want to remind everyone that no matter what restrictions come, no matter what snowballs and pandemics are thrown at us, I really believe this. I believe that there's not one social issue that community can't solve. I believe that with all my heart. Try to prove me wrong. If someone can, I would love to hear. And so when you're facing impossibility, lean in, lean into people, find people, collaborate, network, get out there. Don't do this alone. Because right now, no matter what happens with restrictions, your business can make it, you can make it, things are possible. Let's be proactive and not reactive. Thank you so much, everyone, on behalf of Wellness Innovate, the United Way, and Headversity, who are all here today. Thanks for coming.
Take care, everybody.